So let's look at other stories, right?
Well, we take you first to South Africa, where the International Energy Agency, IEA, is projecting gas production in Africa would increase sharply by 150% in the coming decades. However, the International Energy Agency is concerned about the big decline in upstream investments on the continent. Executive Director Dr. Fatih Birol addressed the just-ended Africa Oil Week in Cape Town.
Demand for crude oil globally is expected to experience robust growth, especially for shipping, aviation, and the haulage industries. However, meeting the demand and keeping prices affordable have become a major challenge. It is especially worrying as upstream investments are not coming in on it. In Africa, investments have gone down by 50%. The IEA warns it could create challenges for oil markets in the early 2020s. However, there is some positive news when it comes to gas production. Here's Executive Director of the IEA, Dr. Fatih Birol, speaking at the just-ended Africa Oil Week in Cape Town, South Africa.
The biggest growth in international gas trade comes from LNG. This is very important as for importers and for exporters. A new wave of LNG in the next 5 years and beyond are coming. And when we look at where does it come from? The growth comes from US, Canada, but also Africa and others. Here, both East and West Africa will be very important, and especially in the context of geographical advantage of being close to growing demand centers, such as South Asia and beyond, will be critical for the LNG exports from this very region.
South Africa's Minister of Energy, Jeff Radebe, highlighted the need for world-class energy infrastructure for Africa to enable the continent compete and meet global demand.
A recent Outlook report by BP illustrates this challenge for us. It projects that the African continent will, in the near term, continue to have the lowest per capita energy consumption. It further indicates that as a continent, we will remain a significant exporter of hydrocarbons, and that gas production will more than double, mainly driven by resources in East and West Africa. This report also projects increased levels of industrialization by year 2040, and that natural gas will play a very important role in meeting energy needs in many of our economies. The report concludes by predicting that our energy demand will remain at 1/4 of the world average. I do believe that we have a responsibility to alter this picture so as to bring Africa closer to the world average.
Former UK Minister for Africa, Mark Simmons, also touched on the key role the oil and gas industry can play in developing the continent.
But just as the private sector needs to play its part, so do African governments. Governance matters, whether it be transparency, contract sanctity, fiscal certainty, speed of decision-making, making countries FDI attractive, and minimal tolerance of corruption. These things matter to investors. Governments need to spend the revenues for the maximum benefit of the maximum number of Africans. Good governance is very sexy to investors in the hydrocarbons sector.
The Africa Oil Week, a leading event dedicated to the African oil and gas industry, saw over 1,500 delegates attend. The delegates from across the world exchanged thoughts and the latest insights taking place in Africa and the future of the oil and gas industry.
Back home, economist and Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ernest Aite, says the amount needed to sustain the senior high school program cannot be derived from government coffers. Speaking at the Graphic Business Stanbic Bank breakfast meeting in Accra, Professor Aite said the sustainability of the policy will depend largely on private sector support.
The free senior high school program has been bedeviled with some challenges since its introduction. According to some industry experts, inadequate budgetary allocations towards the program is likely to weaken the quality of education in the country. At the Graphic Stanbic breakfast meeting in Accra, some participants called for a review of beneficiaries under the policy. Others want government to give tax incentives to companies interested in funding the program. Economists and former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ernest Aite, argued that the amount of money needed to fund the sustainable free senior high school cannot be derived from government coffers alone.
We need at least 4 times what they're spending in these schools. And the government does not have that money. The government does not have it. Let us not pretend that the money is sitting somewhere and it doesn't have it. So we've got to find it. That's why parents must contribute. There was an earlier question about how to incentivize the private sector to make, I think it's very important. The questioner himself also provided some possibilities. Basically, the private sector will be willing if there's an incentive. A fiscal incentive is one, but there may be other incentives through public education. Many of them recognize the fact that today the quality of the students that they are hiring is not good. And so they need to do something about that. It's a matter of engaging them, having a solid discussion about how to improve on the quality of education.
Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Opoku Amankwa, admitted that there is limited resources for the sector, hence the need for all stakeholders to get on board.
You look at their resources and you look at the things that they have. It doesn't match to some of the schools that we have in our public schools, public sector, but they still are able to produce some results that we all appreciate. So we need to ask ourselves, what is it that we're not doing? So whilst we are waiting to get the monies that we need, the full fund, I believe that what concerns us as GES is to how do we maximize the little resources that we have.
Some participants believe the tax identification number campaign by the Ghana Revenue Authority can be used as a platform to get citizens contribute to the program. Israel Titiofe is principal of SOS Herman Maina International College.
Nobody should be left out. It should be equal for all Ghanaians. No sector should be left out. No gender should be left out. But it is a call to do something now. And that is what I would like to ask our friend from GS, that we start to do something now, to think about it. Curriculum development is expensive. Educational change is expensive. But look what will happen in another 20 years if we don't do something now.
The event was attended by individuals from academia and business executives.
President Akufo-Addo has signed a $2.6 million agreement for a SkyTrain project. We have details in this next report.
According to the president, going this way would indeed bring about the needed transformation of the economy that every Ghanaian is looking forward to. He argues if the economy is strong and stable, businesses can grow and expand and pay the required taxes, whilst those foreign investors will bring in the required capital because they are assured prudent returns on their investments.
In responsibility, manage the country well, give the country good government, as well as provide a strong macro economy for the country so that those who bring their money into Ghana are protected in terms of the rules of the game and the rule of law, and are also protected by the quality of the economic environment that we have in the country. So this then is basically...
All right, you've been watching Business Live. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking the 2019 budget. Sandy and Philip are on standby. Stay tuned.
Welcome Welcome back, and you're still watching Business Live. Now, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, will be presenting the 2019 budget statement and economic policy of government to Parliament on Thursday, November 15. Now, budget, as you may be aware, is basically the intention of governments and how they want to spend the money that we have and the policy interventions that we actually have. But have you ever thought about some of the themes attached to our budget here in Ghana? Well, we'll be discussing the various themes of our budget since 2009, and my colleague Philip Namfori is the man on the touch screen. Philip, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sandra.
Why is it important that we even attach themes to our budget in the first place?
Thank you very much. So, we've been focusing always on the hard numbers, macro data, revenue, expenditure. So I was doing some thinking. The team and I were like, okay, let's look at the themes of the various budgets from 2009 till date and see if indeed what was contained in the budget as a theme translates to what is on the ground.
Right.
And our theme for the budget as a whole is the reality versus the numbers. What is on the ground and what is in the budget. The white book I brought last week to discuss. Yes. So we went through, I got this data from the Ministry of Finance website from 2009 right down to 2018. Look at all the themes in the budget. So for example, in the 2009 budget, the theme was investing in a better Ghana. Sometimes when you think about it, it reminds me of the quotes I hear often. What's in the name? I'm sure it was derived from Shakespeare's play, I beg your pardon, of Romeo and Juliet. What's in the name? Investing in a better Ghana. As of 2009, when this budget was being read, if you were there, do you remember Ghana being better, or we had some room to become better? We come down to 2010, growth and stability. 2011, stimulating growth for development and job creation. 2 years growth. Yes, we're a developing economy. We have a lot of room for improvement, they say. But this was the year that marked one of our highest GDP growth rates ever. Why? Discovery of oil. It sent our GDP into ranges of 11% and above. Then 2012, we saw the infrastructural development for accelerated growth and job creation. Another use of the word growth and job creation. And as a country, as a developing country, we're very focused on jobs, on employment and stuff like that. Now, down to 2013, it says sustaining confidence in the future of the Ghanaian economy. Perhaps at that time, maybe confidence had waned in the economy because it was during this time that we experienced the commodity price drop. Commodity price, I mean gold and stuff like that, the prices had begun to fall. And Ghana is a major exporter of gold, etc. Then in 2014, we had rising to the challenge, realigning the budget to meet key national priorities. So essentially, what I gleaned from here is that, maybe we have gone a bit off course and we need to come back on track to experience what's the term there as key national priorities. In 2015, we had transformational agenda, securing the bright medium-term prospects of the economy. 2016, it says consolidating progress towards a brighter medium term. These two budgets, from what I infer, seem to focus on beyond just the fiscal year they were presented in. Right. So the next 5 years, the next 6 years. 2017 budget, what was popularly dubbed as the Asampa budget, it says sowing the seeds for growth and jobs. Then last one, 2018 budget, what we are using right now, and next we are going to the 2019 budget. It says putting Ghana back to work. And I throw Sandra this question. Sandra, have you been put back to work? Simple one.
I'll give you an answer after this presentation. But Philip, yes. Going through from 2012, going through the themes, I realized that growth factored a lot. And from 2012 way down to 2016 about the why were we focusing so much on growth? And will you say, from your research, have we really seen growth since the budget was always talking about growth?
Okay, Sandra, thank you very much. So from 2012, like I said earlier on, we experienced a dip in the commodity prices in terms of how much we gain from these exports of gold whatsoever. So going forward, the country was supposed to put back on a sustainable trajectory. However, coming down to 2016, we experienced some dip in our GDP growth rates. That's the macro numbers. However, some argue that what's on the ground, what will be felt in my pockets, that's what we should be concerned about.
Right. Let me quickly cut you. We have just 30 seconds to go.
Sure.
But then we talk about employment featuring from 2016 and all that.
Okay.
We'll be discussing, but Joy Business has a lot of programs ahead of the budget.
Yeah.
We'll be doing that, and on a budget date, we want to break it down.
Exactly.
So just take us through what we'll be doing quickly.
Okay, so today is one of such discussions. We're going to go more in depth. We'll have features and stuff like that where we're going to explain to you what exactly the budget is. And remember, it's the reality versus the numbers. What's on the ground versus what's in the book. We're trying to connect that to you, our viewer and listener.
All right, thank you so much, Philip Namfuri. That's how we wrap up tonight on Business Live. I've been doing this with Philip Namfuri and my colleague Darryl Kwao. Thanks so much for watching, and go on myjoyonline.com/business for more updates. My name is Sandra Sinamafreno.